Good morning and welcome to Community Connections, Resources, and Gardening. I'm your host, Quandra, and we're going to have an amazing show today. Stay tuned. Welcome to Community Connections, Resources, and Gardening. Again, I am Quandra, your host, and today we're going to have a conversation with William Honablew, who is a dear friend of mine, and I'm grateful to have him here. So welcome, William.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be on the show again. How are you doing?
I am fine. And you? I mean, you're doing a whole lot of different things now. So what are you up to now?
Oh, well, so as many people know, I used to host the USA News Morning Show, and I've switched activities since then, and I'm working with the Baltimore City Broadband and Digital Equity Office, because what we realized during the pandemic, it became very clear the gaps in accessibility, affordability, like that. Now, many of us knew that it was bad from our personal experience with the communities that we work with. But when the pandemic happened and we had to shift everything very quickly to a virtual mode, we started to see the inequities built in the system. Not just that the way that things were and the access that people had, but guess what? We got to see that some of the school systems not even prepared when they did get the resources to distribute them to the students. So we learned a lot. Mayor is committed to closing the digital divide by 2030. That's a huge undertaking. And under the leadership of Kenya Osley and Taylor Carter DeSanto, we have been making really great strides. And so we can talk a little bit more about the work that we're doing there. But we'll also talk about the Grinding Gang. That is an organization that I created years ago, that serves as the platform for me to do business consulting and things like that. It's been a really great chance for me to really get intimately involved in the business and nonprofit lives of many of the community members and organizations, so I can help them scale up and really develop the skills necessary to have the impact that they want. I'm sorry, I get really excited about this, so you gotta let me know when I need to stop and get on with the format, because I'll just keep talking.
I know you will, and that's okay. So, because I also am going to be participating with the Grinding Gang, and I've actually had the opportunity of going through the scrutiny of William, as making me narrow down my business plan and different things. And it's been a challenging, but it's been a worthwhile experience, especially if you really want to be very well versed in your business, but also it shows you that you're separate. You and your business are a separate entity, and and both have to act according to Will. So, how do you feel about Maryland having its first African American governor?
I got to be honest. Having the first African American governor is a cool. It's a really great symbol and a marker for a lot of the progress that has been made. But one of the things that we have learned is that skin folk don't make you kinfolk. When we take a look at Herschel Walker in Georgia, he is a Black man who is running for public office, among the highest public offices in the land. But him just being a Black man does not make him a good Black man, a good candidate. And so more than just having a Black man as governor of Maryland, which again is a huge step, and having the first Asian American lieutenant governor, like that is an amazing thing. But it is also important that Westmore is a good guy.
Right.
Westmore is a competent leader. I'm more
Mhm.
happy about that than I am about his blackness. It's kind of like with President Obama. I was very happy black man in office, especially when my kids let me understand how important it was to them. My
Right. I
youngest
got
son, my youngest son, in our house, we didn't really do like if other people can do it, we can do it. We try to
you. Mhm.
measure ourselves on our own capacity.
Right.
Remember, right after President Obama was elected, my youngest son had an opportunity. He was playing baseball. No, he was playing football, but also wanted to play basketball. And there was going to be a week or two where he had to go to basketball and football practices, playing scrimmages in basketball. And I was like, Buddha, that's a lot. If you want to do it, that's fine. But I just want you to understand what you're getting into. And
Mhm.
and and this is when I realized how important these symbols are. This little boy looked at me from the back seat. He said, okay, that is going to be a lot, but if America can elect a black man, I can do two sports at the same time. Now, how he really assumed one of those had to do with the other, I still don't understand. But he
Mhm.
showed me how important those symbols are. So I'm sure there's a kid in Maryland who's like, oh my God, Maryland, elected a black governor. That's great, and it gives them power and it gives them this idea of agency. But what's more important is that he will be a governor, or at least he portends, not pretends, portends to be a governor that will make changes to benefit the majority of people, not just those in power. That's what I'm
Mhm.
happiest.
I got you. I appreciate that. And you answered both my first two questions. How did you feel? How do you feel about having the first Asian American lieutenant governor, but also she's the first immigrant who's ever been elected to office?
Statewide. And I think that the election in Maryland is a great template for what America can be.
Hmm.
When you look at Maryland, we do have people like Andy Harris who won his bid for reelection in Congress, a very conservative, election denying, Nazi aligned individual. So we
Person.
have in Maryland. I'm not even going to front, like we got it good, but we also have a level elected officials that more accurately reflect the diversity in our community. And
Hmm.
again, recognizing her as an Asian American, I had an opportunity to go to one of her speeches. It's not that she's Asian American; it is the fact that she will be good at this.
Hmm.
It's wonderful to have symbols. Absolutely is, because a lot of times those symbols motivate and move us into doing something powerful. But it is more impressive. It is more important that when we do have these people and these symbols and these roles, that we hold them accountable, not disproportionately. I'm not
Hmm.
suggesting that we dig through their trash and hold them to a level of performance that we hold their predecessors, because that's discriminatory. And that is part of what the benefits I see for having a racially diverse government, because we get an opportunity to have voices at the table that sometimes are not even included, and not just
That's true.
gender or what have you. It's different on things. It is the fact that I know what it's to have lived experience where you don't know where you come from, or that you had literally have to be you literally survive on benefit in the kindness of others. That's a real
Hmm.
thing. And without that type of lived experience, it is difficult for you to represent individuals who do have that lived experience. When you talk about the governor and the governor elect and the lieutenant governor elect's background, they've come through the trenches. They understand not just the best that America can offer, but they also understand the worst. They
Yeah.
also understand what happens when the system fails you along the way through their lived experience, not what they read, what they did. What they say? Not telling you what they think; they're telling you what they've lived.
Hmm. Well, I actually got to hear her speak, but also I got to kind of follow her in her role as delegate in
Hmm.
Montgomery
Hmm.
County. So, it's profound for me to see Aruna in her rightful place as lieutenant governor, and
Hmm.
hopefully, I look forward to seeing the first. woman governor in Maryland. So it was really good for me. But I've also heard Wes speak as well. But I've also seen him when the cameras are not rolling. And that is very
Yes.
impactful for me, especially
Yes.
when he's talking with children and young
Mm-hmm.
adults. He's not talking at them, he's talking to them, talking with them, and engaging with them. And when you can engage a child, you
Yeah,
got me.
you
And
doing
then the
something.
way he's doing something, especially with seniors. It's that trust. You know what I mean? He's not
Mm-hmm.
in the camera, but also the whole family package. You know what I'm saying? He has a very strong wife and very supporting, and she's got her own, you know,
Mm-hmm.
presence and business and things of that nature. That's very profound to me. So it's great
Mm-hmm.
to see, like, for instance, when Obama was in office for me, it was wonderful to see the first African American family, but it wasn't just a family that was put together by media. They were actually
Mm-hmm.
doing the same things they were doing when he was a senator, or etc. So for that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful for both our governor elect and lieutenant elect to be representing Maryland. And I look forward to, like they say, Andy Harris, he's a rare breed. Um, it's really funny to see how some of the old man's old jargon of belief system is still exists in Maryland, because
Mm-hmm.
he was part of January 6th.
The
And he was
Freedom
very open
Caucus, the Tea Party, all of that.
about it. Mhm.
But to your point, one of the things I think we can spend some time anchoring on is the need for authenticity and transparency in
Mhm.
these types of relationships. It has gotten unfortunate that a lot of our politics is transactional. A lot of it is you're looking at it, not the relation, the development. Same way
Mhm.
with we use money. We use money because our society uses money because we don't really know how to handle a fucking relationship.
It's
We don't
true.
know how to value and navigate the type of experiences that we have with each other so that we can put value on it. So what we do is that we say, hey, we need a relationship, we have money. So I don't need to be
Mhm.
nice to you if I'm paying a bill. If I'm giving you cash, I don't need to have a relationship with you. And that transcends and that translates into our politics as well.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things, at least that I feel about both the governor elect and the lieutenant governor elect, is that they are authentic. They're not
Mhm.
perfect, and they don't portend to be. They don't even put that pretense out. It's like, let me, by the way, tell you about some of the stuff I've done and some of the challenges that I've faced.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when one of the things that I learned early on in my sales career, now I in the wrong direction, but I realized how important that when people share things with you, like when you all share a bond or share a habit or something like that. So,
Mhm.
this I started in my efforts to get sales and stuff like that. That's when when I was younger, started smoking cigarettes, because what I found is that all the decision makers would go to the garage during, every 10, every couple of hours, they would go down there. And one of them invited me one time because I had a lighter when she needed a cigarette. So she just assumed that I smoked as well. And so they took
Mhm.
me down to the garage. She's like, hey, you want to come down with us? I was like, I was young too. I was like, okay, I don't know where we're going, but it's cool. I want to hang out. So I go down there, and there's like, and I see a couple of other people who are very powerful in this organization, and they're sitting
Mhm.
down there just in this parking garage, smoking. I'm like, oh, okay, what is all right? And I again, I'm young, I'm in my 20s. I have no idea what this is supposed to do. I didn't even know these people smoked. Like, it was
Right.
crazy. Like, and clearly they did it for a while. They were professionals at it. So they hand
Right.
me a cigarette, and I'm like, oh, thank you. Well, I have a little cold right now. You get allergies or whatever. But I realized that when I would go down, I started learning, not just how to smoke, but how not to smoke when I'm around them. Like, how do lengthen it out? But they were talking about real big shit. They were
Mhm.
talking about moves that they were making, that the organization was making. And let me be clear, this wasn't a secret society. This wasn't a planned let's leave other
Mhm.
people out. It was just that they were more comfortable with these people. There was this level of trust because there was this
Mhm.
shared experience. And unfortunately, sometimes people just look at the shared experience or what they see as the shared feeling, and then they assume that you squad.
Mhm.
For example, Kanye West. Back in the day, I remember I was at this conference about Black leadership in the community. this was after Kanye West got on TV and said George Bush doesn't care about black people. And I think it was even after that whole thing with Taylor Swift, where
Uh-huh.
he interrupted her and said Beyonce's thing. And
Mhm.
so ladies on stage, and by this time I'm in my 30s, I think. Yeah, I'm in my 30s. So one of the young ladies, she was an undergrad, and they were like, well, who is the black leader now? She was like, Kanye West. It's like, and I'm sitting like, well, anything. There's nothing about that makes sense. And what I realized, there were challenges that she saw. She saw that in her view of things, people weren't standing up to the powerful. Kanye
That's
West
right.
did. And so what she watching that behavior, she just assumed all of the character, because for her, same thing that Martin Luther King did, same thing that Malcolm X did. They stood up in white people's faces and told
Mhm.
them the truth. And so
Right.
for her, not understanding that there was more to Malcolm X and more to Martin Luther King than just those statements and this, just those that floss, that what do you
Mhm.
call it? What kids call it drip now. I think I don't know. I just listen to stuff on TikTok. So I'm assuming that's what they say. But
Okay.
when you have a genuine and authentic relationship, when you
Right.
are actually doing the right thing, it's no
Mhm.
longer transactional. And that's what I see in the governor and governor-elect. They are who they say they are. You don't, and they're comfortable if you don't like it. They're
That's
comfortable with
true.
like, oh, you're not cool with this policy. That's okay. They will work with you to try to find something that you are a place where you all can collaborate. But at the end of the day, they're like, this is what we're going to do, and we believe in it, and we believe in it because it will help people. That for me has become the new defining character in my life. If you're not trying to help people, I'm not trying to fuck with you. Like, let me take that back. Let me take that back out because I try to be honest with you, Quandra. I try to be honest with you, but not 100%. I'm not 100% honest with nobody. I'll keep it 85,
True.
not 100.
Oh,
But but
got you.
but the thing is that it is challenging to be who you are. It is
Mhm.
challenging to be honest and earnest and upfront about this is who I am, this is what I do. No back and forth. No, I'm just trying to get this transaction done. And what we
Mhm.
find is that in many walks of life, that's all that people are doing. They're modeling behaviors that they see and assuming that
Mhm.
they'll be able to have the outcomes. But if you don't understand how we got there, if you don't understand that no matter if you're talking about equity, and I'll use Baltimore City as an example because I'm very familiar with the data here. If you're talking about equity and you're not talking about racism, fuck you and your conversation because you're not talking about equity. Baltimore literally invented redlining, like invented it.
Mhm.
And for those who don't know, redlining is the practice where you literally take a map and you draw red lines around certain communities, and that says that
Mhm.
those people who live in those communities don't get loans. They literally drew lines on a map in
Mhm.
Baltimore. Baltimore not only invented it, but everybody else in a lot of the racists around the country took it, and now they took it to a different level in many cases. But if
Mhm.
we are not going to talk about racism here, if we're not going to talk about misogyny, if we're not going to talk about discrimination against the LGBTQ community, then you're not actually part of the conversation. You are enabling the oppressors,
Mhm.
and I'm here for it. You can bring that if you want to. You don't want them problems. I got all the smoke like I'm grilling. Sorry. Uh,
I, I
It's early. I haven't gotten all the coffee and socially appropriate behavior. Da 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 da. So
Mhm.
normally they don't make me have meetings until 10 a.m. So by that time I'm able to get myself together and hi, how are you doing today? Thank you for your feedback. It ain't 10 o'clock yet.
No, it's 9:21. So so you talked about grinding gang. Well, I like the fact that we do have some real people in office. I'm not saying that we haven't had them before, but
Right.
the thing is that it does add the cherry on top to have someone that looks like me in office. And I'm going to be honest
Yes.
about that. But I did vote for Hogan.
Yeah.
I did vote for Hogan. Um, and it's because he may not look like me, but he had some views that were very very important to me, and he
Mm-hmm.
addressed many issues that were important to me. And I do feel that no, I mean some people say he was a bad governor. I don't think he was a bad governor. I think that he did not agree with Trump. He said
Mm-hmm.
he didn't. He didn't vote for him. When Hillary and him were voting, he said he didn't vote for either one of them because they didn't have the integrity that he was raised with. So for someone to stand up to that, for me, was very important because I felt like, who do I vote for? You had both people on both sides. One was supposed to be a Democrat, but she had some shadiness with her. You know what I mean? And I voted for her.
You talking about Kathleen Kennedy Towson?
No, I'm talking about Hillary Clinton. When she
I
ran
thought you were talking
against
about governor.
Trump,
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about
when
governor.
she
Okay,
ran
yes,
against
yes.
Trump,
Yeah.
well, when she ran against Trump, it was very important to me because I said, yes, it's great to have a woman, but then you have to look back at, she talked junk about Obama, and then she asked for his support to get her in office.
Oh, okay. So let me jump in on there because that I know we have different opinions on that. So let's go ahead and get it in.
I get it in. Let's get it
in. For me, with that one, it is you know how they say that phrase, hate the player, don't hate the player, hate the game?
Right.
In her engagement with Obama and things like that, I just looked at that. That's the game. Like when you, especially the way, one of the things that I did admire about Hillary Clinton wasn't that she was a good person, because in my estimation, based on how I define good person, she wasn't. But what she was the most tactically superior politician that I had seen come around, including Obama. Now, Obama did the right thing and he was charismatic. She couldn't handle it. She didn't have that. But tactically, oh, absolutely. She was a tactical genius. Like think about it. She went from first lady to a U.S. senator in a state that she didn't live in, to being secretary of state, to being a legitimate nominee for the president, for the Democratic Party president of the United States. And real talk, if it wasn't for James Comey, she actually might have gotten it. When Comey did that whole last email thing, blah, blah, blah. But so it you are right about the lesser of two evils, especially when it comes to somebody like Hogan, because Hogan had the same thing that Clinton had. Again, not that I think he's a good person, but he had a plan that I aligned with, and he seemed like he had the requisite resources, at least in the elections, to get that plan done. It wasn't so much that he'll say we agree, blah, blah, blah. It was that he could get it done. So if he was going, and the other part too, I absolutely believe that in many cases, especially in a place like Maryland, there is going to be a level of corruption in government. Yeah, Maryland is known nationally as having what is some of the scholars call it a culture of casual corruption. A lot of things that other places would be like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. We're like, I mean, did you do it? Did you make any money off of it? Did you actually get caught doing it? If you didn't, and is it technically a violation of rules? If it's not technically a violation of rules, even if it's a spirit, it's cool, blah, blah, blah. We only recently have we been at the point where we are trying to hold people accountable for their misaction in office. And I do want to say it's kind of convenient how most of the people that we're holding accountable at this point are Black women, but I think that might be a whole separate show.
Yes, it would.
As we are navigating the political space, we start realizing that a lot of these people are just doing whatever they want, because if Congress is a great example, they just want their power. It's like they're more worried about their jobs and losing their perks and things like that. And I get it, because being an elected official is better than being born again. Because when you're born again, there's still people who are like, oh, no, I don't believe in that. But when you're an elected official, your name becomes the honorable. Like forever, you are the honorable, and everybody wants your opinion, and your signature changes. Like people call your office and sweat you for a citation, a sheet of paper that you print in your office. They want that so bad. Why would anybody want to give that up? And so what we did is that we started bringing people to the table who wanted to win more than they wanted to govern. And this is what we get. This is what that looks
like. Okay. So I see a change. For Maryland. I don't see him doing business as usual, but then again, he's going to be before some seasoned senators. and some seasoned House representatives. You know what I mean? So the General Assembly, and they're not always so nice when you get into Annapolis. So I'm just looking up, I'm looking and hope for the best for our governor-elect. He seems to have a really good team that's going to be around him. So I mean, I'm glad that the Democrats are in the House for Maryland, right? In his case right now, but I do know what it looks like from the inside when you're in Annapolis and they don't like you.
So to your point, big up to I think that's going to be a function that he also benefits from, because he's actually a likable guy. Like that's again one of the things I'm really happy with him. Like I think Anthony Brown would have been a good governor, because Anthony Brown is very intelligent. He's very thoughtful when he does things, but that level of just general trust, I'm comfortable because I've known him for years, but he doesn't necessarily engender that general trust. Once you know him, he's 10 toes down. But Wes Moore comes off as just like a guy, and I think some of military experience, his leadership, his undergrad in the community college, as well as in 4-year institutions, that idea. And again, you are absolutely right, because again, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, and so we need to make sure that we hold him accountable to the things he said, not extraordinarily like we do the opposite that we do white guys in office, but we still need to hold him accountable. But what he gives off is I am not leaving anybody behind.
That's right.
He gives off that big energy of like, no, if you're a Marylander, if I have to leave Annapolis to come to your house to put you on my back to get you to safety, we're going to do something like that. And to be honest, that is not Hogan. That was never Hogan. Again, Hogan's tactical. That wasn't O'Malley, Glendenning. This is a new face and a new level of engagement, and a new way of engaging just government, a new sense of care for the community and care for the people, not just the transactions.
Okay, so you may get mad at me, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, wouldn't be the first, won't be the last.
Anthony Brown,
yes,
when he was under the O'Malley regime, he wasn't black. He wasn't black. He didn't want to be amongst the blacks. He didn't represent the black representative, because I'm gonna give you a scenario. We were in East Baltimore. He was invited. He was invited to East Baltimore. It was like kicking off a program for solar and some other different things. And we were in the room with him, and people were so happy. They're like, oh my goodness, he's this. He was in the corner like, oh no, I don't want to deal with you people. You are not even in my class. And as soon as he could skip out, he skipped out. So it made me look at him in a way like, however, when O'Malley came in, he was Mr. Caviar. He came in, hello, yes, we're going to do this thing. Yeah. And it made me look at him in a whole different way. Now, when he ran this time and he got into Congress, and I think once he separated himself from O'Malley, maybe he felt that he had a better of a voice, or
it's not that. It's not that.
He was like a distance from us, and I was just like, but why is he here then? If he doesn't want to be,
let me. So again, I know him, and I'm not defending him, because what you're talking about is a level. It's a social characteristic, and again, I'm not suggesting that he is neuroatypical. Not suggesting, because I don't have that information. But talking as we are looking at people's behavior, and we we figure out, we try to determine why they're engaging in like that. Let me suggest to you another alternative. That this was a topic that he was not very well versed on, that he was learning and trying to who is who, because you know how politics goes. There's certain people, if you are seen just talking to, you may end up that's this person you support, blah, blah, blah. So what I have seen him is when he is not well versed on a subject, he gets a lot quieter because he's listening. And he also doesn't like meetings like that. Like, and this is one of the things that we bonded over. It was like, oh, it's time to go. Let's go. Click that's one of the benefits of virtual, because I could just leave them. I don't have to worry about anybody catching me on the way out. And so again, That's the reason he didn't win governor. He's not a correct charismatic person. Unlike using your example with him, O'Malley, kind of that's all O'Malley was. He was hungry, he was ambitious, and he was charismatic. You never got that I got your back energy from O'Malley. You got that for me. I got the whole we're gonna partner as long as it works for me energy. And
well, I could say something. I could say something now. If you're an African American woman, you're going to get his back.
Oh, that's not the part he would be trying to give you. Not his back. I like the way that they cut just now. It's like whoa, 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 whoa. That's when you know you got a good team on your side. When they're like, okay, we they press the button, gotta stop it. You about to get sued.
So what happened?
Oh no, that your team took care of it. That was a production. That was a production note to let back on topic.
Can someone talk to us? Are we live? We gotta come back.
Yes, we're live because remember we were about to get on topic and I was about to say something, and they know I was about to say something that I might have got sued for. Well, now that I have a good government job, it may not have been something that like I might get an email on Monday. Hell, I might get an email Sunday in the direction I was going. So I thank your production team for like reining me in because they don't even know me that well, but they were like, oh no, we standing by with buttons for this one. No sir, no way.
Yeah, because are we live?
Yeah,
we are.
Yeah, we've been live for like 40 minutes, y'all.
Yes, we're still going. This is live. We're live, Quandra. We're live. This is your show. We have people watching.
So
this
guess
is
what?
Real.
Well, let's go with it.
This is real. This is happening.
Oh, that was awesome.
I'm back in the note. Bye.
So, I don't want you to get an email on Sunday morning, and I don't want you to get on Monday.
But I appreciate your team for catching me because I was getting worked up because I got certain feelings about certain things, and I think we should talk about them more. But speaking of which, there's every meeting that I'm in, I try to bring this up because I don't think anybody is talking about it enough. And while it may seem like I'm a crazy person, you take it how you want. 3 different countries have declassified information about unidentified aerial vehicles, like UFOs. They've declassified it, and these vehicles move in a way that no known Earth-bound vehicle can move. And they've been intercepted by military airplanes in 3 different countries. Hell, even the United States Congress had a hearing on it. And so I just try to make sure that everybody is up to speed on the whole alien potential thing, because that'd be a horrible thing just to wake up one morning and it's just shocking to you. It's like, no, they've been here. Let's go. Okay.
But you know what? Okay, so we're going to talk about that. There is research that there have been beings that have come from other planets, and they've had them. They have them in this undisclosed areas under different things. Now, I don't know if that's factual or not, but I had the opportunity of going into a Midwestern town, and they have these circles, like these different, like some kind of like symbols.
The crop circle thing?
Yes. So that kind of creeped me out a little bit, especially after seeing, First Encounters.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Third Kind, yeah. So, and like body snatchers and different things of that nature. That kind of, when I'm in this Midwestern town, all I'm thinking about is something's going to come out, and people just all these different types of shows on TV. And I don't look at TV too often, but different types of shows where they're actually seeing where people are being cloned. Now food is being cloned and all kinds of different things. It just makes me look at it from a research point of view that this has always been done. It's just that it's been closed off to the general public, or maybe it's too much for the general public to understand or take in that we do have beings walking around us, because we have different, even from a gardener's point of view, there are plants who have existed for over hundreds and hundreds of years that still grow. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
In Maryland and different parts. So it doesn't sound too off circle for me to see that, or to realize or to think that there is another being outside of us.
And I think the thing with the alternative beings is that, to your point about the soils and things like that, just because the vehicle's a little bit different. A lot of the
Mhm,
stuff that you may be talking about doesn't mean that it was sentient. It was done sentiently. It
mhm,
doesn't. I'm suggesting that there are aliens who came to plant crops, but
mhm,
it is possible that a planet that blew up, that some of the spores or whatever from them landed on Earth.
mhm,
Same thing with random particles and bits, especially because like we have virtually no information about the way that the universe actually works. My youngest son, he is a
mhm,
physicist, focusing in on astronomy and
mhm.
quantum stuff words.
Quantum
And
physics?
yeah,
Really?
yeah. My oldest one is a mathematician, and my youngest one is a physicist.
When
And so,
before I had my children, I wanted to be a
mhm.
nuclear physicist and I wanted to serve in the Navy and go in a submarine, but I was
Oh,
ahead
that's
of
good.
my time because they said that women weren't allowed on
Absolutely.
submarines. And
Oh,
then
absolutely.
not until like 2009, 2010,
Mhm.
we now are on submarines and we actually have women that are nuclear physicists.
Yeah, and kind of going back to what we were saying, the
Hmm.
equality and equity pieces is when one of the things that when we are in positions of power, because you're
Hmm.
right, the landscape is changing, and a lot
Hmm.
of times, Black people and women, as a combined and separate group, have had to try to navigate the places of power
Hmm.
under the rules of the people who have power.
Hmm.
So what that means is that there were things that we weren't going to try because we knew that the powers that be wouldn't go for it. And
Hmm.
so as we are developing greater agency, as we are have in positions of power to make decisions that affect others, it becomes
Hmm.
incumbent upon us to make sure that we are not just mimicking the behavior of the oppressors, recognizing, the best example of this is going through the cycle of going from child to parent, and
Hmm.
the recognition of just how different things are. There are things, because you don't have experience, you've made up a story. Like I tell this all the time. My youngest son, he had a babysitter who took incredible. She wasn't even a babysitter. She was really part of the family, to be honest. And she would just,
Okay.
we was spending more money on him. We were actually giving her each week. It seemed like, because we would go to
Mhm,
McDonald's and she'd buy him little clothes and stuff like that. And so one day he was in the car. He was like, "Can we go get the McDonald's?" And
mhm.
I said the traditional parent line, "Well, you got McDonald's money?" Because I ain't got McDonald's money. And this is what he said to me. He said, "Well, why don't you just go to Lisa's bank? Every time I ask her for McDonald's, all we have to do is go to her bank. She presses the buttons, put her card in, presses the buttons,
Mhm.
and the machine gives her money, and we can go to McDonald's. You just need to find out where her bank is so that you can get that too."
Oh God.
But
Now,
from a child's perspective, how often are we that in business? Oh, all I gotta do once I know you working with clients who are like, oh, they hear that there's an energy assistance program. All I gotta do is send them my application, and I'll be able to get it in a couple of days. Whoa, slow your roll. Do you have all
not
your
in this
paperwork?
world.
Do you have right? And so, but looking from the outside, when they see the
Mhm,
news articles that says it's fully funded program and this person is getting help and that person is getting help and this is what they're going to do, they create this story in their head because they don't have the lived experience. They've not gone through this process. So they're sitting there like, oh, this is going to be easy. We do the same with business. We do the same with politics. I've seen a number of politicians, the ones that I supported and work with, many of them start off very idealistic with these goals, but the reality of getting stuff done hits them. And it's people don't disagree with a lot of the plans because they're not good ideas or they were not functional. It is that I have a separate agenda that has nothing to do with those plans that I am navigating through. And if you
mhm.
think that you're coming to the table just with good ideas and everybody's like, oh, wow, you have the better idea, we're just going to go with it, it suggests that you're going to, those are the people who tend to, in my experience, tend to transition very quickly and become something that they weren't before. because when you come into the table with this idea that everything's going to be easy and it's not, now you're looking for the best way to get what you want to get done. And normally that's for the people who have the requests.
Now, see, I'm going right back to alternative. What are the UFOs and the sightings? Did you see the youngest son of Donald Trump? Do you see? He just looks like he's like 7 foot, and he's
I don't know how tall he is.
Like Lurch. He looks like Lurch, like almost like from the Monsters, or is doesn't he look like an alien? Kind of. I mean.
Yeah, but what I've been told, and I have not been able to verify this independently, but he is also neuroatypical. I think what I have been told is that he is on the spectrum.
Okay, so he's on the
spectrum. And so while his family is tall, so while he is abnormally tall, again, his grandparents from Slovenia, they're very tall as well, at least his grandfather. And so that'll explain his height, but also the way he presents may have to do more with not understanding the social cues and engagements around autism than it is any type of.
Okay. So he has. Okay. So I can. Okay,
and again, I have not confirmed that independently. I just want to say, I ain't trying to get in no trouble. But that is what I've been told about him, that he is neuroatypical, and what I've been told is that he's on the autism spectrum. That behavior and that presentation may be more about the size is just like his family, like they some big people, but his presentation may really be about his the way that he processes.
He's on the spectrum. So if he's on the spectrum, I'm going to back off away from him. But his father is the Antichrist. He is Damien. As far as you know, remember the Omen?
No.
Yes, he
is.
His father is
not the pawn of his not the Antichrist. His father is the pawn of the Antichrist, because the Antichrist would be that stupid. Let's be clear. We try to ascribe Antichrist to just bad people. No, Antichrist is, in order to achieve what the Bible says will happen, the Antichrist needs to be brilliant. Now, the Antichrist would use somebody like this as a pawn because, again, if I was using my powers for evil, would have set Trump up to destroy the Republican Party, and I would come in and clean it up and raise it from the ashes and be the leader that everybody would follow. But I'm not using my powers for evil, so.
Okay, so I'm glad that you're not using your powers for evil. But the thing is that I had a mentor that was very eclectic, and she actually was a director over MPT, and just certain. She was very much about community involvement. How each person who played their role, played their part, played their invoked their passions and likes, dislikes about what was going on, and joining together to be not saying everything had to be perfect. It was okay to agree, to disagree, those kind of things. But that kind of exposure was the very thing that made me adamant about helping people, adamant about breaking down state, local systems like energy assistance or BGE or those kind of things to help them navigate through those systems. Do you think that our current leadership on all levels is community geared, or if so, who are, and if not, who aren't?
So I think the issue is that we actually rely on leaders for this type of stuff. Like the reality is that, even the governor and the lieutenant governor, they can only do so much. So what I focus on is what can we do to provide those resources in the event that those in power don't. Now, part of it is making sure that we scan through and we vet them and we find people who are going to be community focused and community oriented. But that's also, we also need to make sure that as they are going along, we let them know what we think, what we want, and we make sure that our voices are heard along the way, and we hold them accountable, not just at the ballot box. One of the big things I tell people, my Donnie story all the time is like when I first met Donnie Glover, when I actually didn't meet him, it was the early 2000s, and this is before people were taking pictures with phones and video and stuff like that. And he would always have this phone up in a politician's face. It's always up in their face. What are you doing for the Black community? And back then I was still a Negro. I thought, because that's how you progressed in all societies, by being the good and virtuous Negro. And so I'm like, you're messing it up for everybody. You out here making these white folk mad. You know what's gonna come back. They charge everything. Why you out here gonna make them white folks mad? And so the time he did it, I was like, oh God, here's this guy. And I saw him at the next one. I was like, okay, here he goes again. And the third time, same thing. But the fourth time, they had an answer for the question about what are they doing in the Black community. And it wasn't the fact that, his credentials changed or his approach changed. It was his tenacity and the fact that he stayed after it. And I think that is an example of what we need to do. A lot of times we, with school, with our parenting, with our marriages, with our politics, we want to get to it. We elected you. Now, what you need to do to make us okay? I married you. Now what you need to do to make our family work? I hired you. Now do what you need to do to make my business successful, as opposed to recognizing, what do I need to do? What is my responsibility in it? And so to that point, one of the things that I've also been working on is the launch of the Global Center for Spirituality and Business. Because like you and I talk about often, is that you have a lot of people who believe that they have to sell their souls in order to be profitable, in order to be commercially viable. The reality is that is what the system demands. But the system demands that if you want to win capitalism, the hook is that you can never win capitalism, because in order to win capitalism, you have to have all the resources. You can't have all of the resources. So what you end up with is these people who claim to be capitalists and things like that. All you're trying to do is to fill that empty hole inside yourself in a way that will never happen. It won't happen because there is not enough to fill the hole. If we can take a step back and start redefining what success looks like, when we can move the transactions from not just being about how much money or these quantitative pieces, but also the qualitative and spiritual and emotional engagement that we have with our community. One of the reasons I think that America is in the shithole that it is because we've spent a lot of time focused on, do you have enough? What is your value to society? And our value to society has nothing to do with our morality. It has to do with our money. When they are talking about building new schools, when they're talking about developing curriculum, it is not how do we make them whole? How do we make them happy individuals? It's where will the jobs be? We live in a society where we are comfortable saying that, hey, Quandra, if you don't have enough money, then you don't get lights. Hey, Quandra, if you don't have enough money, I will literally be able to sit with a needle that has the chemical necessary, in most cases funded by the government in research, but the chemical necessary to save your entire life. This one injection, but your insurance doesn't cover it. So now I am comfortable watching you die. We are comfortable saying that as bad as the weather is, if you don't have enough money, we are comfortable with you being homeless and being exposed to the elements. This is where we live. Why it a surprise when our politicians reflect those values? Why is it a surprise when our businesses, when the CEO keeps or loses their job because of profitability, why would they give a fuck about anything else?
True.
When you see the Disney company, the one CEO, he tried to take a stand before Bob Eisner came back, the other Bob. And he tried to take a stand when Florida did that Don't Say Gay bill, and he took a passive stand, which was worse than taking no stand at all, because people are like, yo, that's bullshit. Like, y'all said it. So the people who were down for the bill, they didn't fuck with you. And the people who were against the bill didn't fuck with you. It is that fear. It is that trying to walk a line between it. And again, I'm not trying to be on Westmore because I have not seen what he is in a political capacity because this is the first time. But he shows up like he can be trusted to do what he says. Or if shit comes up and he won't be able to, he will let you know. And so
True.
the Global Center, because we want to make sure, we want to help people figure out where the alignment is between their economics and their spirit, to recognize that there is a lot of space between just getting cash and giving it all away for free. And also looking at where your business and where your professional life fits in your overarching life's mission. How do you how does it fit? Because if you are looking for your business to make you feel good, you will probably get disappointed because it's not a real fucking thing. You feel good in your head. What are you doing?
You are nuts.
Why you get mad at me about your self-esteem? It's called self-esteem.
That's right.
And when we are navigating through these places, we need to make sure that we don't let the oppressors disproportionately put burden on us, but we also are accountable to ourselves for our part in it. And that's a really thin line in a lot of the American context. Because one of the ways that gaslighting works in America, and one of the ways that people get controlled, is that they're told that things are their fault that aren't. Case in point. And I know we got to go, right? Because
no, go, because I know you on fire. But that's okay.
So we looked at schools, and I was talking to a friend of mine about making agreements, and she was talking about how her daughter was not living up to agreement about her participation in school. And I said, whoa, because I like saying whoa. I said, whoa, what agreement? She was like, well, she has to get good grades. Like, no, she didn't agree to that. You all are making her go. She has no power in this whatsoever. It is not agreement. It's an obligation. And she's being chastised that she has this obligation that she cannot negotiate. She can't say, well, I only want to go to school for this. No, you can't say that. You go when they tell you to open. You leave when they tell you it's over. You take the test that they tell you. So you are taking her agency away from her and then blaming her for not loving it. We tend not to look at schools for what they are. This one time I was when I was working at a school, a mother was sending her son in and telling him, hurry up, get in there. And what she said, it stuck with me. She said, hurry up. Basically, it was hurry up and get in there and fix your face. That whole, the black mother thing, fix your face, you get in there like you like it, blah, blah, blah. And what she said that stuck with me the most was like, so, because I need to hurry up and get to this damn job, but basically expressing the fact that she didn't like her job. And look at the juxtaposition in that. You are sending this child into a building that he has no choice to go in, requiring him to perform in a way that he doesn't even get to choose. Think about how objective grades are. So you send him to this space so that he can grow up and get a job like you're complaining about going to. When we stop and take a look at our educational system, it is literally, especially public education, it is literally only designed to make us better, more manageable citizens, to make us more controlled and accept random shit from people. Think about, we spend 12 years teaching them how just to understand random shit. It doesn't matter what the teacher said, just as long as you don't have to go in the principal's office. So our grades, we don't get grades as adults. We don't get grades as adults, but we do get evaluations. Interestingly, a lot of our evaluations are quarterly, and we get the final one annually, because it is a repeat of the system of just do what the fuck we tell you to do and move on. It is about teaching people how to be controlled. And then when we let them free our control, we don't understand why they go buck wild and do wrong things or do things that are not socially appropriate. You didn't teach them why it's socially appropriate. You didn't teach them the value of socially appropriate. You just said, do the shit I told you, or you're going to the principal's office. But once the principal's office is no longer a threat, then why am I doing anything? You have not taught me agency. You've actually done the opposite. You've instilled in me a desire to rebel. Right. Because that's what I think agency is. And that's why you end up with that little girl. And I'm old enough to call her a little girl now. That little girl said Kanye West was the black leader. Because there's not the experience to understand what leadership is. We look at the trappings and make our decision then. Now you got me woke up. It's about 10 o'clock, isn't it? I can tell because I'm about awake now. Okay. I'm about awake now. I'm like, okay, all right. Woo, let's get this started.
All right. So with the election, okay, not only with the governor and lieutenant governor, but the school board, we actually have people that were elected
Big up to
community
Ashley
on the
Esposito.
school board. Yes, hey, Esposito. So, do you think that was a decision that was made as a result of the school board not being working inadequately?
Well, I think one of the things that we're doing in Baltimore, and one of the challenges that I have with education in general, is that, like I just said, about it being designed around just making them good employees for somebody down the road. Uh, all of education, all of traditional education that we do, it is designed to make them better employees, more compliant citizens. And so, and I think that's the juxtaposition, because there are many of us who believe we see the potential and the power of schools as a transformative entity that can help these students and these communities where they're located. But the challenge is that they control, they want, it's not about the relationship. It's about the metrics. It is whether it's test scores or cash, it is designed around removing the relationship. Now, I don't want to make it sound like we let people do what they want, because the opposite, they're placed in the middle, because if you just let them go, then their personal prejudices, your system is only as good as their capacity or their lack of capacity. So that's why there needs to be these systems in place, but there also needs to be a way to measure the effective system, but also measure the humanity of the system.
Okay,
because
but
when you adjust a number with Baltimore City not working, it is that I think that has limited the growth and the outcomes for Baltimore City. And I think moving to at least having a uply elected board is going to be very helpful, because it brings an opportunity for community accountability into the conversation that didn't exist before. Like it's a whole ass thing when the mayor of Baltimore City doesn't have real direct control over the school system, but because he's the mayor of Baltimore City, everybody blames him for the situation in the schools. Like but that is also part of the fact that we have not taught agency in civics. We've not taught people how this actually works. We just tell them to show up and vote. Who for who? Here's a list of people to vote for. Well, what do they stand for? Well, here's some bullet points. It is I need to just give you enough money, enough information, so that you can make the decision that I want. And let's be honest, we do this with kids too. Like, I want my kid to think for themselves until they tell me no. Whoa, what happened there? What you mean no? Well, I don't want to do that. Well, you better. Well, how is that for them thinking for themselves? Unless you follow that up with, you can think for yourself, but the reality is of life that sometimes you don't get to make your own decisions. And thereby teaching them to appreciate agency, not just assuming that one day they'll magically get it.
Okay, so with everything that you've said about, for me, the school board needs a purging, because you still have people who have been appointed by past mayors. O'Malley, he still has 2 or 3 appointments on the
I didn't know
school
it was
board.
I thought it was 1 or 2.
One of the things,
what is the challenge with the longevity?
Well, it's not. Well, the thing is that we don't hire local. I don't care where we are. Police department, we always hire nationally when we have talent here. We have talent in Baltimore that could have been.
The talent, a lot of the talent in Baltimore does not want the jobs that their talent commands, because of the socioeconomic circumstances and some of the structural issues. Like I said, Baltimore has structural issues that are designed on purpose to keep certain communities down. We are not going to address that. There is the location of people and their impact on the community is their location and the inability to attract local individuals to participate in some of these things, I think is a function of the history, that type of inequality. So like one of the things that we're doing in the Office of Broadband and Digital Equity is that we're pulling together a work group to help us create or update our digital equity framework. Because that framework is how we make decisions about where we invest money, how we set up standards and those types of things. I send out invitations to people that I know that do the damn thing in the community. I hit one of them up yesterday. I was like, yo, the meeting is going to start next week. I haven't heard back from you. He was like, oh, that was you? I just saw something from Baltimore City and said, fuck it, I'm not going to participate, because Baltimore City I've tried to work with Baltimore City in the past, and they on da. So when you say that, that's why they bring people from out of the city, is because as a city entity, as city agencies, we don't take responsibility of the fucked up that we've done. One of the things that changed the gamut, the game for a lot of the people that I'm working with now in the Office of Broadband and Digital Equity, is that I started off a couple of our meetings like, I apologize, because I know that before I got here, there were conversations, there were plans, and there was a whole lot of stuff done that in many ways is going to feel like you're going to have to start over. I apologize to you for that. I know that you've been working on this stuff, but there's not really much I can do because I don't have that institutional memory. And that really changed that really changed the dynamic, because we're frustrated because, oh, well, here we go again, just like Baltimore City, blah, blah, blah. But what you realize when you look at Baltimore City is that the talented people hired out fast. People use Baltimore City as a training ground. And a lot of these cities, a lot of cities and disinvested communities do this, or this happens in a lot of them. Like, they create these hospitals in disinvested community to do cutting edge stuff. And once they have the reputation, then they get hired by Mayo Clinic, or they get hired by these other places. People who start these programs in communities to see if they work, because the communities don't have nothing. So if nothing else, you're just doing something good for them. And then once you've mastered it, when you've mastered your KIPs, when you've mastered your NAFs, then you take them to other places. You take them to other places so that you can be, and again, because we don't pay enough. We don't. Why? Because we don't have the resources. Why? Because we have not invested in our communities. Why? Because we wanted to make sure a certain group of people had what they wanted. And so now everybody.
Okay. So, okay. I get it. Baltimore, I'm going to still say Baltimore City is the greatest city because I live here. But their government, for me, I think the whole infrastructure needs to be torn apart and started over. I think ownership in Baltimore, the fact that the state still governs our schools. I remember when my daughter was 9, when the state took it over. Why don't we have what was it? Misappropriation of funding and lack of leadership.
Not misappropriation. It was the funding didn't make sense. So a couple of things that happened was that the results in Baltimore City, the school results, the results and things like that, have not often been stellar, but people don't take into consideration that it's the socioeconomic, not the education. So what they have done is that they've moved. I remember I had an internship in 1995 in Mayor Schmoke's office. The most exciting thing that I did was to send a 13-page fax to Seoul, Korea, because that was my first international fax. It was a waste of my time, except for this one other thing. I was at a press conference that, the mayor has his daily press conference during that time or whatever. And it was about the schools, and it was snowing. It was bad. And it was a Friday, and every other jurisdiction had closed down
except for Baltimore City. Yes.
Except for Baltimore City. And Walter Ampry was the CEO of the school, the superintendent of schools at the time. And the press did not like Walter Ampry, did not like him at all. And so they said to him, it's like, well, Baltimore City is in the red and this and that. And if you had closed schools, save like $2 million every day you closed, and all these other places were closed and you didn't, blah, blah, why? And what he said, and because I'm sitting in the press conference, I'm like, exactly, that's part of the problem. Y'all be, blah, 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 blah. Y'all not doing things that make business sense. And my entire life and philosophy was changed by the next thing he said. He said, 70% of my students live below the poverty line. 80% of them qualify for free or reduced lunch. If I close schools on Friday, the last decent meal that many of my students have will be the lunch I gave them on Thursday, and the meal will be the breakfast that I will give them on Monday if we open up. He said these other jurisdictions have the opportunity, the luxury of worrying about education. I have to worry about my students staying alive. I was like, yeah, I'm an asshole because what I was just thinking. I apologize. I need to become part of the solution and fuck up until I know more. But that is what happens with a lot of policymakers. They don't understand the nuances. They're focused on the numbers of education, not realizing, again, we just want what we want, that these people are starving.
So what can community members, because I know, before I say that, Baltimore community associations are done by neighborhoods. They have the pride about neighborhoods. And a lot of times they don't always work together. So
Yes.
do you think, and they don't always let everyone in. So
Yes.
what can be, and which means that just like government, they don't always want everybody in. So
Yes.
what can be changed? What do you think needs to be changed? Because there are a lot of new people in communities that want to make change, that are doing their part with small groups to get things done, while the heads are sitting back saying, "Oh, I don't want you to do this because you're not part of this sorority or this."
So let me say something about the reasons, because I've had the opportunity to be on both sides of that type of discrimination, that affiliation discrimination. So one of the things that I recognize is that business is about your belief in trust.
Okay.
One of the reasons that a lot of government agencies and a lot of institutions don't do business with smaller organizations is because these organizations don't necessarily have the internal capacity. So, for example, when you're working with a large institution, decisions are decentralized. So the person you may be, like, for example, there's a project that I'm working on right now that will net our vendor some pretty six-figure at the end of it, a six-figure payout. But we're putting it on pause for at least 2 or 3 weeks and stopping moving because somebody else had some other questions that need to be answered before we can make it happen. So most small businesses can't deal with that. Most small businesses, oh wait, I was expecting to get that money today, and we won't even continue for another 2 weeks, which means I may not get it for a month. Many small businesses can't survive that. And so it is one of the things that we can do, whether it's networking, is really focus on, like you're doing through your show and through your activity, is focusing in on developing critical capacity in these individuals and organizations, so that so they know that they should probably use Google first. Like a lot of times that, and don't just rely on that, but understanding how to get information, understanding how to negotiate conversations, understanding where your value lies. Because if you've never experienced your own value, you may not have a very realistic view of it, either positive or negative. You may think you're worth a lot more than you actually are on the free market, and you don't understand why nobody's trying to do business or be with you. It's like, because your market rate is here, but your asking price is here. And again, just like regular things, the only time that works is when you have a buyer who's incentivized, or you have somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. We end up with a lot of people in these positions who don't know what they're doing. The reality is that nobody does. Everybody who in 2019 wrote out their 5-year plan, all of them are fucked up and wrong, because everybody's 5-year plan out the window. So we're all guessing every day. And your experience and your character gives me more capacity to be comfortable with your guesses. So if we're going to make changes, if we are waiting for a politician, a company, or institution to do it, that's what we've already done. That's how we're still here. If we start looking at each neighbor, and I told you my philosophy, I live my life by the idea that if I want to solve any problem, I figure out how to help one person. When I couldn't figure out how I shine my business, I found an organization and I said, hey, let me help you build your nonprofit on me. And what it did is that by helping them, it taught me that some of the things that I thought were wrong. Some of the things that I thought how things should work didn't work that way. But I was only able to learn that because I decided to help one person.
Ooh, that is powerful. So in order to be, for me, this is how I'm getting it. And then before I'm going to give my synopsis, my scenario, and then we're going to wrap this up. But it is valuable. It is important that every person realize that community doesn't just mean a group of people. It means 1 or 2 people doing good in the community. If you see something in your community that needs to be done, then I would say, rather than wait on someone, you devise the plan. Absolutely. You gather your own team and then you execute it. And then if other people want to join in, be open to new ideas on how to do it. Because if you don't, we're gonna be in the same boat that we're in now. If you're dependent on politicians, you have to realize that you're putting them in office. And if you want them to do the things that you need in your community, it is time that you start electing people that have the same ideas and make them accountable once they get into office. On that note, I want to say thank you, Will. Thank you, William.
You're welcome.
Esquire, for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you guys next Saturday at 9 a.m. Goodbye.
Bye.